I think it's fair to say that Keir Starmer and his government haven't exactly gotten off to the best of starts. If you have been unfortunate enough to witness the unedifying spectacle of a government stumbling around due to many self-inflicted missteps, then you may well be feeling, and this is a polite version, a combination of frustration and annoyance, with a soup song of disbelief in the mix, and that is the polite version. Keir Starmer's popularity has plummeted, and many people would quite like it if he stepped aside and allowed someone else to be Prime Minister. I doubt that's going to happen, at least in the short to medium term. In the interim, I do hope he listens to different opinions. I believe that the government has made, well, many errors actually, but two fundamental errors. I'm sure there's more, but two that leap out to me, and they're both closely connected. Number one is the error of the armchair expert. You know, the person who sits watching a game and says, I could get that ball. Hey, your training was rubbish. That formation that you had there wouldn't work. How come you missed seeing what was going to happen? You didn't read the game properly, and so on. They've sat on the sidelines and concentrated on baying and screaming at the players, the Tories, the people who are on the pitch, but not getting themselves pitch ready in terms of ethics and morals, and perhaps even communicating more. In opposition, did you not notice that Keir Starmer was difficult to read? It was like blancmange. What did he actually represent? That worried me, and that worry, I think, was actually, unfortunately, well-founded. So, the armchair expert, fundamental error, and then, of course, in the mix of being the armchair expert and not getting their house in order, I think there's a great lack, it would seem, in this government of common sense and self-awareness. Didn't you think taking freebies and then getting into power, where people wouldn't mention it, that maybe you should have gotten your act tidied up before then? Did you actually think it was okay to shout and scream about it and then go, oh yeah, I know we're not being exactly the paragons of virtue here, but once we're in power, well, yeah, we will be. This is unbelievable. And I do wonder whether once they were in power, if the press hadn't made a song and dance about the freebies, whether they would just have continued. I do worry about that quite a lot. What is going on? What did they think they were doing? This is very, very peculiar behaviour. So, that was an issue, and by the way, that immediately began to set up, and amongst other things, a sense of them and us, the elite. They're all in it together, and they seem to be no different. So that was a real bad start, because they didn't read the room and they didn't take into account, I believe, that the landslide victory, so-called, was at least in part due to the fact that people had had enough of the Tories. And then here we go. You look kind of similar. And what do you represent? Oh, now we understand what you represent, because you're telling us what needs to happen. You're telling us what to do. And that leads me on to fundamental error number two. And that error is an error of leadership style. And I think that Keir has adopted a technocratic leadership style. Now, technocratic leadership isn't bad in of itself. Generally speaking, it can have a lot of positive outcomes, because a technocratic leader is promoted or given the role because of their expertise. And that can be a really good thing. If you think about Keir's background, he's a legal expert, very good lawyer, apparently. And you can imagine the situation then in such a structure, a legal structure, that he's asked for his opinion, he deliberates, he pontificates, and he pronounces the outcome of his thinking. And people go, oh, wow, that's so well thought through. That's really clever. It's so balanced. Thank you, Keir. And I think he's taken that approach, that persona, and put it right into the Prime Minister's office. And unfortunately, in terms of leading other organisations, other sectors, other disciplines and countries, expert type leadership, technocratic leadership, is only part of the mix. It's not a bad thing to have, don't get me wrong. Attention to detail, having intellect, that is important, but it's far from all. You need to take into account the hearts and minds of the population. You need to take into account the emotional temperature of the room. You need to take into account that people were feeling pretty much on their knees and they need to buy into you. You need to actually make them feel that you care, become emotionally connected instead of slightly emotionless. And this technocratic approach, this error, I believe, is what we saw. We saw Keir and his team thinking, well, you know, we're hired here, we've been voted in because of our expertise, and so we're clever and we're experts and we know what you, the country, need to do. You people in the country, do this. And so this doom and gloom speech, which may, of course, and probably was pretty accurate in many ways, was not emotionally intelligent. Later on, they scrabbled to put in the light at the end of the tunnel and make us feel a bit better. But the cat was out the bag at that point in time. And this whole winter fuel payment stuff. Yes, well, we've thought about it, and mathematically, this is what we need to do. But have you thought about how that would make people feel? And I said a couple of months ago that you needed to show the workings. So you were asked, government, Keir, about the risk analysis for cutting the winter fuel payments. And that hasn't been forthcoming. As far as I'm aware, it still isn't there. And also, we now have the bogeyman, the spectre of the billions of pounds fiscal black hole. Well, what's in it? And what do you intend to do about it in detail? Because if we're not careful, the government will use this as the big baddie. And that means you need to do this. Once more, this top-down technocratic approach. So what does Keir need to do and his team in terms of leadership? I believe to become transformational leaders. Keir, you need to be a transformational leader. What does a transformational leader do? They inspire. They inspire. They connect at a human level with people. Examples of transformational leaders would be Roosevelt, Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Churchill. Those are transformational leaders. Not perfect. All flawed, no doubt, in different ways, but we're all flawed. But they connected with the hearts and minds of people, and that's so important and closely correlated with a transformational leader is someone who is a servant leader, or perhaps more accurately adopts a servant leader mindset. The transformational leader inspires. They connect with people at an emotional level, and their mindset is to serve. So the freebies and the cronyism and even the baying at the Tories, it doesn't look like a servant mindset to me. You're there to serve. And that can mean doing things that are popular. It's a populist leader. Oh, boo, ha, humbug. Yeah, maybe if they can't deliver. But it is okay to do things that the public quite like. It is okay to allow them to feel some joy and hope and to connect. And a servant leader essentially will listen. They will really listen. They will sit down and they will lower the barriers and they will listen to other people. They will dial down the technocrat's ego. I know it all. I'm clever. Oh, I get all these plaudits. No. You don't know everything. And just presume that other people have got things that you need to hear that you don't know and you could benefit from. So you dial down the ego, you listen, you engage properly in conversations, you seek out those people who you may disagree with, and again, you listen and you ask, how can I help you? How can I help you improve? What can we do to help you improve your lives? Rather than saying, this is what's going to happen, straight out of the blocks, with now the baggage of the freebies and other stuff having been blancmange in the past. So I would strongly suggest to Keir and his team that he considers the leadership style that he has adopted so far.